When I was 20, I made the biggest decision of my life. I left my home country to move to a foreign land with my husband, Jack. Back then, I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought I was prepared for marriage, but nothing could have prepared me for the challenges I was about to face, especially with his parents. Jack and I met when I was just 18. He was charming and kind, and I fell for him quickly. My family wasn't wealthy, but we were close. My mom was my rock, my best friend. I had no idea how much I'd miss her when I left. At first, things seemed okay. Jack and I lived with my parents for a while before moving. It wasn't easy to say goodbye, but I tried to stay optimistic. My mom held me tight and whispered, "Be strong. You can do this." But as the plane took off, I felt like a part of me was being left behind. When we arrived in Jack's country, I was overwhelmed. The language was foreign, the culture was different, and I felt completely lost. We moved in with his parents, and that's when the real trouble began. His mom, Linda, seemed polite at first, but I quickly realized she didn't think I was good enough for her son. She made little comments about how I wasn't like other daughters-in-law who had their mothers nearby to help them. Her words stung, but I didn't know how to respond. Then there was Jack's dad, George. He was cold and intimidating, and Jack was afraid of him. George controlled everything, how we lived, what we ate, even how often I could call my mom. He said it was too expensive for me to call her more than once a month. Each time I hung up after those short calls, my heart ached. I wanted so badly to tell my mom how hard things were, but I didn't want to worry her. Jack wasn't much help. He avoided conflict and always took his father's side. I felt like I was battling this alone. I cried myself to sleep many nights, holding my baby boy, Alex, in my arms. Alex was the only thing that kept me going. One night, everything came to a head. Jack came home drunk and angry after a fight with George. He yelled at me for something small, I can't even remember what, and I tried to stay calm for Alex's sake. But George stepped in, siding with Jack, and told me to leave. "You can go back to your parents if you want, but you're not taking that baby with you," he said. I was terrified. How could I leave my son? I had no choice but to stay, even though every part of me wanted to run. That night, I promised myself I would find a way to be strong, for Alex. The following months were some of the hardest of my life. I fell sick from stress and sadness. I had no energy, but I pushed through because I had to. Slowly, I started working and learning the language. It was exhausting, but it gave me a sense of purpose. Over time, I found a good job and started saving money. My dream was to buy a house, a place where Alex and I could finally feel safe. Meanwhile, Jack struggled. He never learned the language and couldn't hold down a job. I became the breadwinner, supporting the family and taking care of Jack emotionally. I wanted to leave him so many times, but I stayed for Alex. I wanted my son to have a stable home, even if it meant sacrificing my own happiness. But things with Linda and George only got worse. Linda started saying hurtful things openly. She told me she always wanted a daughter but didn't consider me one. "You're not like the other women," she said. "They have their mothers. You don't." Her words cut me to the core. Every time she said something cruel, I bit my tongue and forced a smile. I told myself it was for Alex, but deep down, it was breaking me. Years passed, and I achieved my dream. I bought a house. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was ours. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. But even then, the pain from those early years lingered. My mom passed away 10 years ago, and I still regret not visiting her more. I can never forget how Linda told me not to call her so often. Those missed moments with my mom haunt me. Now, I only speak to Linda and George out of obligation. I say happy holidays and try not to stir up any drama. But I can't give them love or kindness anymore. I don't have it in me. Sometimes I wonder if they even notice how much they hurt me. Do they want forgiveness? Do they want me to act like nothing happened? I can't do that. The pain runs too deep. I still cry when I think about those early years. I wish I had been stronger, braver. I wish I had stood up for myself. But I'm trying to heal. For Alex, for myself, I'm trying to move forward. I don't know if I'll ever forget, but I hope that one day, the weight of it all won't feel so heavy. Questions and answers. 1. How old was the narrator when she moved to a foreign country with her husband? She was 20 years old. 2. Who was the narrator's main emotional support before she got married? Her mother was her main emotional support and best friend. 3. How did the narrator feel when she left her home country? She felt like a part of her was being left behind and was overwhelmed by sadness. 4. What challenges did the narrator face after moving to her husband's country? She faced language barriers, cultural differences, and a lack of emotional support from her husband's parents. 5. How did Linda, the narrator's mother-in-law, treat her? Linda was critical and made hurtful comments, implying the narrator wasn't good enough and comparing her to other daughters-in-law. 6. How did George, the narrator's father-in-law, treat her? George was cold, intimidating, and controlling. He restricted her from calling her mother often and showed no concern for her feelings. 7. How did the narrator's husband, Jack, respond to conflicts with his parents? Jack avoided conflict, sided with his parents, and didn't provide support to the narrator. 8. What was the turning point in the narrator's struggles with her in-laws? The turning point was when George told her she could leave the house but couldn't take her baby with her. This made her realize she had to stay strong for her son, Alex. 9. What kept the narrator motivated during her toughest times? Her son, Alex, was her biggest motivation and the reason she kept going. 10. How did the narrator work to improve her situation? She learned the language, found a good job, and saved money to buy a house. 11. How did the narrator feel about her husband's lack of effort? She was frustrated because he didn't learn the language or hold down a job, leaving her to support the family emotionally and financially. 12. How did Linda's comments about the narrator's relationship with her own mother affect her? Linda's comments about not calling her mother often left the narrator feeling guilty and regretful, especially after her mother passed away. 13. How does the narrator interact with her in-laws now? She only speaks to them out of obligation, saying polite things like happy holidays, but she cannot offer them love or kindness anymore. 14. What does the narrator wish she had done differently during her early years in her husband's country? She wishes she had been stronger, stood up for herself, and visited her mother more often. 15. What is the narrator's hope for the future? She hopes to heal from the pain and one day feel less burdened by the weight of her past. Thank you for listening to my story. Life has its challenges, but it's through sharing and connecting that we find strength to heal and move forward. If this story resonated with you or if you've faced similar struggles, let me know in the comments below. Remember, you're not alone, and together, we can create a space for understanding and support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire and empower. See you in the next video.